The future of wind energy is one of the biggest talking points on the table of issues today. People in both business and politics are trying to sort out how energy will be produced in the future. It is almost universally accepted throughout the scientific community that current means of producing energy are environmentally destructive and contribute to increases in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, accelerating a potentially dangerous and destructive warming trend on our planet. With the cons nearly outweighing the pros in energy production methods such as fossil fuel burning and nuclear power plants and hydroelectric dams, it seems no question that the most logical approach to energy production in the future is wind power. First, let's discuss the former three of the aforementioned most common forms of electricity production. Coal burning is the most common method of electricity production in the United States, with more than half of our electricity coming from coal burning power plants. It's easy to see why. It's cheap and it's plentiful. The United States has the largest coal reserves in the world, and according to the Energy Information Agency, or the EIA, we have more than 200 years of economically recoverable coal in our reserves. The abundance and low cost of coal may make it seem like it's a logical contender for creating electricity, but the environmental effects of obtaining and burning the coal are innumerable. Just getting to the coal is extremely destructive. Entire mountains are sometimes razed in order to get to the coal, buried deep underground. Forests and other habitats are destroyed, and species are threatened. According to climate researcher Suzanne Bopp, more than 1 million acres of forest have been destroyed and over 2,000 streams have been buried over the past 20 years in just the Appalachian Mountains alone, where coal is plentiful underground. Burning the coal produces even more damage to the environment. Toxins like mercury are released into the atmosphere, and the massive emissions of carbon dioxide are contributing to the buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the main cause of climate change. Toxins from emissions coming from coal-burning plants mix with the clouds in the atmosphere, producing acid rain, which damages habitats even more and erodes many structures. Hydroelectric energy is also a common form of electricity production and is much cleaner emissions-wise. It relies solely on the flow of water, in most cases due to gravity. Because of this, and unlike coal, hydropower is a renewable form of energy. Nearly every river in the United States has at least one dam built across it, many of which are used to produce electricity. The United States gets 12% of its electricity from hydropower according to WaterEncyclopedia.com, much less than coal power. But there are only so many rivers to dam up in the United States, and it is very expensive to build dams. The environmental cost of dams is also very high. Reservoirs, sometimes many square kilometers large, destroy a lot of habitat, thus threatening species. Rivers below the dam are shrunken, sometimes not even reaching the shore of the ocean. Patterns of migration of many species of fish are disturbed. Reservoirs behind some dams are even beginning to dry up, notably Lake Mead behind the Hoover Dam. The large cost of building dams and the environmental impact of dams are starting to make dams a less desirable choice for energy production. Some dams are even being blown up in order to restore the natural flow of rivers and restore habitats that have been largely destroyed or damaged by dams. Nuclear power is another large source of energy in the United States, generating about 20% of our electricity according to PolicyAlmanac.com. It is virtually emissions-free, not contributing to any greenhouse gases in the atmosphere as coal does, and uranium is a plentiful element in the Earth's crust for nuclear power's needs. Despite the clean method of electricity production that is nuclear energy, the environmental risks are enormous. Nuclear accidents can happen, and can be extremely environmentally destructive, as seen by the effects caused by the explosion of the Chernobyl power plant in 1986. The area is still uninhabitable to this day, as radiation levels are still lethally high, and radioactive fallout still covers much of the surrounding area. That much damage was caused by just 3% of radioactive material escaping from the power plant. 97% of radioactive material used at the power plant remains in the power plant, untouched since 1986. Even though accidents are very rare, all nuclear power plants pose a danger to the environment because of the nuclear waste they produce. Spent nuclear fuel is highly radioactive, so it must be stored somehow. In the US, it is most commonly stored in steel-lined containers at the power plants themselves, many of which are neglected and rusting. Legislation in Congress is calling for the nuclear waste in the United States to be transported to a location under a Nevada mountain to be buried, where it must remain sealed from the outside world for hundreds of thousands of years before enough radioactive material decays to safe levels. But transporting such massive amounts of nuclear waste across the country poses big risks, as trucks or trains transporting the material could crash, releasing radiation into the environment. With the disadvantages posed by the aforementioned sources of energy, it is no question that wind energy is the most logical choice of electricity production for the future. It is the cheapest of all energy resources, renewable, emissions-free, and poses little to no danger to the environment. According to NRGsystems.com, a single 1 megawatt turbine can displace 2,000 tons of carbon dioxide a year. It produces competitively inexpensive electricity at an average of less than 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Wind energy is efficient, unlike coal and nuclear power, where 60 to 90% of energy produced is lost to heat. It is also reliable, relying on little maintenance and costing little to operate. It is estimated that there is enough potential wind energy in North Dakota, Texas, and Kansas alone to produce power for the entire United States. Wind turbines can be built almost anywhere with little environmental impact. They can even be built in the middle of farms and cow pastures, with no disturbance to surrounding environment. Some energy companies are even paying farmers yearly incentives to build turbines on their land. There is some concern to the impact of wind turbines on migrating birds, as many birds are killed when they fly through the turbines. However, such allegations are hardly credible as reasons for wind energy to be put down. To put it into perspective, in the United States, nearly 175 million birds per year are killed by power lines, and at least 100 million are killed by flying into urban structures. 60 million are killed by automobiles, and almost 70 million are killed by pesticides. According to the National Wind Coordinating Committee, the death rate of birds per turbine is about 1.83 per year, for all species combined. That means it would take at least 30 million turbines across the United States to kill the same amount of birds per year as do automobiles. Furthermore, scientists are studying bird migration patterns across North America in order to determine places where wind farms can be placed which would least affect migrating birds. The benefits of wind energy overwhelmingly outweigh the disadvantages. Wind-generated electricity, combined with the potential for electric-powered vehicles, could be the key for a clean, green energy future.